right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this part 2 of this brand new bootcamp series called 15 Things You Can Automate and Probably Should. With that, I am Mark. I manage the Head Nerds team. I've been with Enable on and off for the last total of about 8 years or so, almost 9 now. My role has started on the sales and engineering side. Then I moved to the building the Nerds team, and now I manage the best team in the company. If I'm quite honest, I love that team. My group is there as advocates. We're there as trainers. We're there as whatever doesn't fit, whatever we can do to help, we do. This is definitely something that you should be leveraging as far as you can. We do training courses, we do webinars, we do blogs, we do a lot of assistance. We travel all over the world and everything in between as well. I travel almost 50% of my time right now, trying to meet pretty partners like you guys, going to see what we can do to help and everything else like that. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me through Twitter and LinkedIn. You can see my info on the screen. Otherwise, you can also reach out by email. I did send an email to everybody, so you will see that. And we'll go from there. My first example is something that I've been asked by many partners to do in the past, and it was about monitoring Hyper-V snapshots on a host for size and age and things like that. And I created this automation in a very generic way so that I could do it and get a lot of different metrics all at once. So I'm going to go into Automation Manager just like that and open that real quick. So go and get that example. There we go. Okay, so my script moved. So Hyper-V, I'm looking for it here. There we go. This is my example we're going to show. So this one is I'm going to say simple, but it's got a lot of objects in it. Essentially, what it does is that it gets all the snapshots for all the VMs, and then it loops through and then take a look at the age, and then increment the total snapshot size and count and so on. And it goes through that. It takes a few seconds, so we'll run it right now. It's a very lightweight type of automation. It doesn't need to do very much, but it just it doesn't need to do very much. But then once it's done, what it'll do is on my machine, I have a little Hyper-V host, nothing too magical or difficult. But what it does is that it finds that there's 5 snapshots. The total size is about 0.25 megs. Again, it's super tiny. And then the largest one is about 0.05 megs. And then the total age is about 148,000 minutes. So it's getting pretty old, but they're pretty small. So that's good. Now, what this allows us to do, and David, we will get to that. We were actually going to show you an example of VMware right after. But yeah, so in VMware, you can actually get that information. So if I go to N-Central, I go to my laptop, for example, and what I can do is if I would upload the policy, right? So if we're going to show it in N-Central, but you can do this in RMM as well. But in N-Central, you would go to script repository, upload the script. Then if you want to make this into a monitoring, you have to go to admin, service management, custom services right here. Then you add it as a service, automation policy. Then I'm going to pick my Hyper-V snapshot monitoring. The schedule is going to be every 10 minutes. This is one that you could probably change to like every hour, every couple hours. It doesn't need to be run super frequently, but it's up to you. The next one is you have to decide your threshold. So everything that you build into a service needs to have a threshold. So we're going to go, let's say 0 to 20 snapshots, that's fine. 20 to 30 is warning, and then 30 plus is failed. Total size, maybe 0 to a gig is okay. A gig to 5 gigs is warning. 5 gigs plus is failed, not a big deal. Now, for text fields, you need to put a threshold, but when we don't want a threshold on it, what I usually do is I'll say no threshold on this. And what I do is I say, if you don't find that, it's normal. And if you do find it, it'll be a warning, but it will never find that, so it's not a big deal. Then what is the largest one? The largest one will be 0 to 500 megs, and then 500 megs to 600 megs, and 600 megs plus, something like that. Yeah, and you would choose what makes sense for you. And then same thing with that one. We don't need the threshold on a specific VM because I don't care. And then finally, what is the max age? So 0 to 35,000 minutes, and then 35,000 to 60,000, whatever, and then 60,000 plus. Now, the reasons you want to put something here, you could literally just leave it alone, right? Go like 0 to a crazy number and just be done with it. But the reason that I usually like to have something like that is that this will give you the ability to monitor the age. So if you can say, okay, well, why do I have a snapshot that's 5 weeks old, 4 weeks old, 3 weeks old? This might be a known thing, so we'll adjust the threshold, or it might be bad, so we'll decide to go in action on it. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Yeah, so that is where you would do that. You would do save. I already have it because I did it this morning. So what you do is you would then apply to a machine to test, like mine in this case. And when you add the service, where did I put it? Did I put it? Yeah, there it is. Hyper-V snapshots. It is telling me that I have 5 snapshots. They're 0.25 megs. This is the largest one. This is the VMs that have snapshots, and the age is that. This is just giving me all of that in a visual way in and central. I have my monitoring service. I am aware of what's happening, and then I can make a decision as to what I would like to do from there. So this is something that, again, is optional, but it's up to you. What I usually would do is I would come here. The ones that I know I will not do thresholds, I will turn off, just like that, because I don't care about those 2 strings, and do OK. And when I do that, if I come back, you will then see that the thresholds are up. That way it's cleaner, but it's not optional, not mandatory, but it's good to have. And then you're good to go. And then if you wanted to from here, if I want to be a little lazy, I can check the box here, say make a template right from here, make that into a template, use a rule, deploy that to all my hosts, and boom, I'm good with it. That is also something that you can take advantage of if you wanted to from here. And that is something that you can have. So Mohammed, what you're asking for here is if I can take the output of this, for example, and output it to an email every day as a daily check. At the moment, you cannot. There's no way to do that. You could simply run it as a script and email yourself the output for each machine, but you would have to do it as just as a task that you put on every machine. That would be different than monitoring, but you could do that if you wanted to. Typically in the Central and RMM, they're really meant to do the monitoring for you, and then all you got to do is get the alerts, or you go to your active issues view and see that anything is out of bounds. But that you can if you wanted to do it as a task. I will show you examples of tasks in a little bit, but you could if you really wanted to. All right. So going back, we talked about the snapshot monitoring. Now, let's say we do find some really old snapshots. We want to clean them. I also have an example of that. So let's go and open that. So this is going to be our second example for this one. So give me a second to go grab that. Okay. Hyper-V, there we go. That is my Hyper-V snapshot cleanup. This one looks for all the snapshots. And if the snapshot name contains part of this name, then go and delete it. So the reason that I did this specific example is a partner of mine says every Tuesday I do a snapshot on every VM, and because I have a maintenance of some kind, and then I would like to delete them all on Friday as long as there's no issues. So you have a pre-created script to do that creation and want to delete. And he said, how do I do that? So I said, well, it's easy. Put in the name, Tuesday snapshot, and then in the deletion, just when you run this, I can then do it. The name will be, Tuesday snapshot, because when you run it, you put the name of the snapshot partial, and you can just add it like, Tuesday snapshot dash the date time, and then you can just keep running this, and then you can remove them 2 days later. So this example does that. You could, because if I look at it here, I could also do it based on the snapshot state, do it based on the time, based on the size, and so on. I have all these options. But these are all options for you to go and take a look at. Someone's asking if I can leave the intro slide for the automation up for a bit. I guess I can, but we are going to go through each example, but I will leave them for a few more seconds if you want. But either way, totally fine. So what we're going to do is if I go back to that example, right, we talked about doing snapshot cleanups. That gives you that option. So the first part of the workflow is I could do a monitoring, and then the second part would be I could do a cleanup if I wanted to. Either I can schedule it, or I can simply do it as a self-healing, right? If the snapshots are over 5 weeks old, go into a fail state, clean that up, do it for me, and boom. That's always an option if you want to go that route. So this is something that you can do right from here. You just have to modify different parameters of your choice, and then you're good to go. So having said that, like let's take a look at ESX now. So we've made ESXi automation objects. When was that? That was probably 2.5, 3-ish years ago I created those. And the purpose was really to give you guys the ability to do more automation easily. I had partners asking me to do more and more automation against it, and I had to create all these individual scripts. And I said, well, why not build the objects and be done with it, which is what I ended up doing just because. So, this example, I can do the same thing and clean up my ESX snapshots. So if I go into, if I go here, I don't have an ESX host to do it again, but I'll show you an example of how it would look like. So for the cleanup, this is the example. So the ESX, the VMware object, the ESXi objects, there's a series of it under VMware here. And you can, first of all, connect to your host. When you connect to your host, it will output a session ID that you then link to the other objects. So I can say, connect to the host, get all the snapshots, and then from there, go through each of the snapshots. And if it contains a specific name or the details, then go and delete it. And once again, I could take a look at the snapshot size, at the date created, the age, and things like that. But in this case, I'm just doing it simple and just going by name. But I could do it on age, I could do it on size as well. It's just a matter of changing your criteria and then deciding what to do. But it's the exact same workflow. So if I was to run this, all it asks is the host, the username, the password, and the VM name to, the snapshot name to clean up again. So if I go into N-Central and I say, I would like to do that, all you got to do is pretty straightforward. You find your ESX host that you want to do it again. Let's say this guy. Then you say add a task, automation, right? And then you would pick your VMware. So there you go, create snapshot or clean snapshot, whichever. Then you link each of those fields to the proper field. So the first one is the network address. The next one is the username, like that. The next one is the password, and then the VM name you just type, or the snapshot name. This one will be creating, so it's a VM. You could also do it for all. There's different options. You could play with that. But this allows you to feed these parameters in, target your ESX, run against from a probe, and then this will let you automate that process pretty easily. This is just something that will let you get into the environment, get information, and then get data. So in this case, I would be able to monitor those snapshots for age. Now we have added recently in the last maybe year and a bit, we have added the ability to do non-Windows based automation monitoring services. So for example, I can take ESXi and I can take a remote execution policy. That's how we did the Meraki monitoring. That's what we're doing for things that are non-Windows. So the probe would run the automation policy, connect to the ESXi, capture the info, and then that would monitor through that ESXi. And then you would simply put whatever input parameters linked, like the username, the IP, and the password. Then you could threshold on those. So you can actually take that snapshot monitoring, snapshot cleanup, and get that information in. So this is giving you the ability now to, go ahead and clean up old snapshots, and then you can also take that to take snapshots, right? You could also monitor snapshots. So all of these things are empowering you to do your own thing in automation from here. So this one is VMware cleanups. We can do one to monitor pretty easily, just like we did for Hyper-V. And then to create a snapshot is pretty easy. You just connect to the host, and then you format a snapshot name. So I'm going to run this, even though it's not going to work. I just want to show you what it does. It will basically connect to it, which will fail. Once it's failed, it will generate the date in this format, and then format a string that will be like this here, VM-the date. So it puts the name that we put in along with the date time, and then that lets me output that information. And then that lets you basically just connect, do what you need, and get out, and then do your snapshot with the name, with the date time in it, so you know when you did it and everything else. You can even add, like NC automation, whatever you want to call it, right? Or RMM automation, or whatever it is. So far, everything I'm showing so far will work for RMM and for N-Central. The only difference is in RMM, you would have to type in the parameters and type in the information that you need. Whereas in N-Central, you could pre-fill that or link it to existing fields or custom properties. So that's a slight difference. Other than that, both will do the exact same thing. All right, not seeing any questions so far, so I'm going to assume that this kind of makes sense. The last example on ESX that I will do for today, let me just get my spreadsheet to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Nope, we're good. The other one that I will do on ESX is going to be around vMotion and guest. So this is something that I get asked all the time. I have to do maintenance on this host. I would like to vMotion these 3 VMs from host A to host B. You can run this. When you're done, you rerun it the other way around, and boom, you move it back to the other host, and you're good to go. Typically, you would run that against the vCenter server, and not so much the actual guest, the actual host, but you could do either or. That will let you trigger the vMotion activity. So if I show you with the example, it's super simple. There's not much to it. Where did it go? Where did I put it? I lost my script. So I'm looking for it. There we go. Found it. All right. So vMotion, right? Connect to your ESX host once again. Link the session ID, link the guest name, and the destination host, and boom, we're good to go. So this will let you get the info you want, move the device, the guest to the other host. Then you can do your maintenance. You can move it back when you want, but it's all automated for you through here. So once again, if I was to go in and central and run it, so if I was to go here, I would then have the option to just go and run it pretty easily from that front. So always just something to keep in mind. Oops. All right. So yeah, essentially it for that one. Now, again, I will send the list to everybody who's attending today. So all of these so far are in the cookbook, right? Doing a snapshot, cleaning up snapshots, getting Wi-Fi password, which we'll go through in a few seconds. So all of those are there for you to take a look at and use. So the next example is this one. This is about getting the computer's Wi-Fi password. Now, I'm not going to run this on my machine because it actually works. It will output all my Wi-Fi's. This is the example. I had to obfuscate it so that you guys would not see that. That would be bad. But this is all my Wi-Fi on my laptop, and this is all the passwords for it. So the way that this works is that it connects to with an SSH command to the network layer, and we'll then get all the Wi-Fi password. Now, I'm not going to take credit for this one. I did not create it. I found it on this site. I just took the command and did a couple little mini tweaks just to make it work well. And boom, you run this. The way that this works is that it gets the list of all the Wi-Fi profiles. Then it matches them to the list of profiles that have no password. Remove those. Then it goes and gets the password. It matches that, trends it, cleans it up, and then outputs it as a table. So it's a very, very cool, somewhat complex command that will just give you everything you need in a one-page view of all your Wi-Fi. So customer calls is for example, like, oh, I'm at home working, you know, I put my Wi-Fi in my laptop, but I don't remember what it is. I have this new machine, or I have this mobile phone I need to set up. What is my Wi-Fi password? And you wouldn't know their home Wi-Fi. So you would run this script, get all the lists, like, oh, what's your Wi-Fi name? Oh, it's home something something. Oh yeah, home something something. This is the password. Great. You can give it to them, have a good day, then move on with your life. And that would just output this as a table from the policy. So you can go into N-Central, oops, wrong one, like this. Go in N-Central or in RMM again, both will work. You would go here, you would pick your, let's say, Windows laptop right here, add a task, automation, and then get Wi-Fi passwords, save, boom, the output will be giving you all the passwords. You're good to go. You pick whatever you need from that output file. So you can very rapidly get that info. When you look at automation, that's a very important thing that I always tell people. You want to find these little things that are costing you time, right? If you have requests for this once a week, once a month, well, why not just have it there ready for your text to use or for yourself? If you, you know, you have something that's costing you 20, 30 minutes a day, then it's 20, 30 minutes that you save for something more useful. And the more you start chipping at these little automation policies, the better you'll be for it. So this is just another very, very simple example of automation that you can do with the platform and make your life easier. So once again, I'm not going to run it because that would be bad, but this is really as simple as this gets to run. On the Linux side, I wanted to include at least one example of Linux stuff because I find that it's important to automate some things against Linux. even though you may not have as many devices, even though it's a very small portion of all of our devices globally, we still see quite a bit of it, and it's important to take the time to automate properly. So this example is simple. It is forcing Linux OS updates. So I'm gonna go and do this. The way it works is that I have a series of commands to do SSH emulation. So basically it's using, I think it's Posh SSH what I used when we built those. And what it will do is that it will allow you to open a session, do the enable command, like the sudo in this case for Linux, and then it will do an apt update and apt upgrade, and it will do the UI for the automatic approval, and it will just proceed through that list. So if I run this against my test device, I don't remember my password. Give me a sec. It's a dev machine, so I have it stored somewhere secure because that's important. That's what I thought. Okay. That you run it, it will connect. So it'll take a second. There you go. This is my session ID, which means you connect. Right. And then you can see I'm at root on Linux. Then boom, it is fetching those updates. You can see here it's running through and doing stuff. So it is getting through, doing the updates and doing all the fun stuff. Once it's done, it will be ready. I could then put a wait. So if I want to go one step further, I could come in and put a wait object, say wait maybe 5 minutes, so 300 seconds, I guess. Then I could say run a send command again. So SSH, do another command, and then just do a reboot, do a service restart, whatever. And then I can do that. All right. So yeah, so that is something that you can do. Matt, if you don't mind, I'll cover that towards the end. That's a little bit outside of scope, but I will definitely go back to it for you at the end of the course, at the end of the webinar. But anyway, so this is allowing you to do an update here. You can use Yum for different distros of Linux. You could run OS updates against Linux, Cisco switches, routers, things like that. You can use it to do backup of different configs. I actually have one of my guys working on doing switch backups for a partner of ours. So we're going to publish that the book when he's done with it. But there's so many things you can do with these objects. It's just a matter of going like, what is costing me time? Like, oh, I have to log in and do X all the time. Well, then let's automate X, right? Whatever that is. And it's just a matter of finding those items and making it easier for you. All right. So that is another example. These are a pretty quiet bunch. We're kind of powering through those, but that's okay. Worst case, we'll be done a little bit early. The next one is monitoring for ransomware. I got this request so many times and I never really took the time to do anything about it. And finally, I was at an event in Amsterdam in May, and I decided to take a look at it. I was bored in the back of the room and I said, you know what, let's screw it, let's have fun. And I started to look online. I found something that was kind of doing it with honeypot files. It was not doing it the way I liked it. So I ended up modifying it, making it my own. And now this allows me, so this was built by Joshua, and I modified it to make it the way I like it, where it actually will create a reg key to make sure that we know it's not the first run. Then it downloads the file that it needs. Then it goes ahead and tests the files for modification. And when you run this, what it basically does is that it will say, okay, well, the two files match, everything's okay. There's no signs of ransomware detection. And then if I go in and I take a look at one of those files, right, because I put two files, one in program data and one in C users. So if I come here and I take that, that honeypot file on C program data, let's say I rename it, right? I got to rename something. If I rerun this, it's instantly go like, hold on, there's a sign that it could have been hit by something because the file is no longer there. It might have been renamed, modified, whatever the case is. It actually checks the contents too. So if the file is there, but it gets encrypted, we will also get a warning about it, things like that. So all of this is allowing you to get alerted pretty quickly if something happens. And then you can see here, it shows all the different details of what's happening. So this is just a matter at that point of building that into a monitoring service, and then from there being alerted if anything does go wrong. So if I go ahead and show you that, what it looks like, what you would typically do, obviously, you would go to the cookbook article, right, the ransomware detection. You would come in here, you would download the article, and then when you go and upload it to N-Central, you would go into service management, make a custom service from it like we saw earlier. Once I have done all of that, if I go to monitoring and I go to my ransomware detection, just like that, I can see here the system is not detecting anything because it's looking at file in temp and one in users. Now, I used to have it in temp. I changed it to be into program data because a partner reminded me that when you do a dem cleanup, this will be deleted. Uh, so yeah, I kind of like whoopsie. So I changed it to use program data instead, but in this, it doesn't matter. It's the same idea. So what it does is that it will tell you if something is tampered with the file, if it's been physically modified or anything, and then it lets you take a look at that information. So this is another, again, simple example where you can take this and then you can go one step further by having an automation policy to go pop up. It's like, hey, you know, we find a security issue on your machine, your network will be shut down. Please call IT at this number. And when you do that, you could have it afterwards where you say, you know, shut down all the NICs on the machine until they call you back. Or you could have it where it will shut down the machine and things like that. You have different options available to you so before it encrypts the whole network or causes any kind of issues. The important part here is just to decide what is an acceptable risk for you and what is the next level that you want to go, right? Security is an onion. This is one more layer to that onion that you can add to your security so that people don't get to the middle of that layer and then get the data, which is what they're looking for. Someone's asking if I just muted myself. I'm not sure. Just for my own sanity, can everybody, can someone just message me or raise their hand if you guys can hear me, just to make sure. Oh, okay, he says never mind. Okay, so I think it was just him. Perfect. Thank you. Just making sure. With that, there we go. With that, the next example, again, towards security, disabling SMB-v1. SMB-v1 has been security risk, has been flagged by every authority on security out there. It is still enabled by default on existing OSs because it is needed for a lot of legacy apps. Fewer and fewer of those exist. If you do not need any legacy apps with SMB-v1, you need to disable it. There's a lot of risk in leaving it on. So that's important that you turn that off. So to do so, it's a pretty simple thing. You just run this little one-liner through automation and boom, you're good to go. So if I go in here and I show you the example, so where's my example? There it is. I run this once again, it's a one-liner and boom, we're good to go. Now, when I run this, the thing to keep in mind is that in my case, in my case, it gives me an error because it does not have that command because Windows 11 changed that. That's totally normal. This is more Windows 7, Windows 8 thing. Windows 10, 11, or any new builds of Windows 8 that are up to date should have that feature disabled by default unless you enable it, which should not be as big of a deal, but definitely something that typically speaking I would say, you know, disable unless you actually need it. So that's just one more thing that, you know, we are recommending to take a look at and be careful with. All right, not seeing any question. I'm assuming it's still kind of somewhat making sense, kind of. So again, disabling SMB1, just one more layer to that security onion. Every time you see those major vulnerabilities, you can come to the codebook and take a look within usually a day or two. Louis, my security guy, is hard at work all the time creating new automation to enhance security on your networks and do different things to help you out. So you're going to see more of those, and this is a good example of that. So just something to keep in mind. The next example is extending or modifying the default OST and PST file size. The default is that you are allowed 50 gigs for a single OST or PST file. First of all, in my opinion, that's way too big, but that's me. Second of all, you get people that hit that limit because they've been keeping emails forever and ever and ever and don't delete anything, or you get the limit on the PST side when people are creating massive amount of emails and not deleting them ever. It's a little harsh. So this script allows you to raise it to 100 gigs, 75 gigs, change it lower, whatever you want to do with it. And it's a simple thing to run. So if I go into automation here, oops, actually I already added in Central, so let's go take a look at it from there. So when I'm in Central, I would go into here. Now this is one of those that you need to run as a logged on user. So this one will only work on Central at the moment. What I would do is run the policy, and then I go do a PST, Outlook PST set max size, whatever the size is, save. I could target a bunch of machines and this will simply just run and set it. It says PST, if I'm not mistaken, this will do both, but it's just something to keep in mind as you take a look at it. But this is gonna help you clean up those files, reduce or increase the size as you feel it's necessary. In line with that, someone was asking me this morning, how do I find my PST files in a recurring manner or find OSTs? You also have a monitoring that will say how many PST found, the total size, largest one, and so on. You could simply modify this policy to say look for OSTs very, very easily, and you can make that into a monitoring service. The only thing I'll say is I would really, really recommend you change the schedule. If you do it as a monitoring service, don't run this more than once a day. This one will work in both in Central RMM or Insight, by the way, but I would really, really recommend you limit it to at least once a day, not more, because you're asking it to look through the hard drive for that. Now, 99% of the time it will be under C users. So what you could do is just go to C users and limit it there. That's where most people put their PSTs or OSTs. You may get the oddball guy who puts it under C/my name, whatever, but typically it will be under C users, so you can search for OSTs or PSTs there. Again, this policy is set to do it for PSTs, but you're welcome to modify it to look for OSTs. It's just a very minor change to the policy. So yeah. So yeah, that's basically that. Okay. Okay, so that's good. So looking at that example, yeah, I think that's it. There you go. And the next one is another example that I got asked quite a few times. So I decided to take the time to make it. And again, it's a one-liner, so it didn't take very much time. This one simply gets all the network adapters on the machine and will simply restart them. So it does that as an admin because you're logged on as admin when you run from Central by default, unless you change that. So this allows you to have a customer on the line go like, hey, I'm having some networking issues right now. I don't know what's happening. You can simply come here, click, get a restart, and boom, everything is flipped and restarted. Might fix your issue, and then you move on with your life. If it didn't, do a restart. You can go and then do more troubleshooting. But the vast majority of time that I've used something like that in the past, it has fixed my issue because the network adapter sometimes just needs a little pat on the back, and then it comes right back. And that is definitely a possibility here. So something like that as an example. Once again, super, super simple. I would choose my device, add automation policy, and then I would have, oops, I did not put that here. What you would do is simply upload your policy, which I forgot to do, but it's okay. And then you would select your restart of your, where did it go? Restarting your NIC. So restart. Yeah. Darn it, I don't have it yet. It was there this morning. It must have been deleted by someone. That's okay. You would simply have the one-liner, you run it, and boom, your NICs are restarted. You're good to go. Once again, you see it here. It's simple. It's a simple one-liner. There's not much to this. And then at that point, you're good to go. You've done your cleanup. With that, I did want to include a macOS section this time. I was criticized last time for not doing it. And you can already automate quite a bit in macOS. I have my Mac guy, Charles, that has gone through this, has made a lot of scripts. There's, I think, probably over 50 or 100 Mac scripts now on the cookbook, and we continue to grow this. So we're going to keep looking at that overall over time. So I wanted to include a few examples. I have 4 or 5 for our thing today. The first one is getting all pending updates, right? Like you talk to your customer, you have an audit, whatever the case is, you need to check quickly what updates are needed. We have that script, it's in the cookbook. Mac pending Apple update check, and that's a little shell script. If you click on it, you'll see it's just a little shell script. You can right click, save as, or right from here, right click, save link as, whichever one will work. Will let you clean up, get that, upload to N-Central. When you upload it, I will show you that. That's super important. When you go to add the policy, add it as a Mac script, not just a script. It has to be a Mac script. Once you add as a Mac script, I can then come here, look for one of my Mac devices. Now, in this case, that's Mark Mac. I have a renamed Mac here. That's a little temporary device. Add, and then run the Mac script. Then I can say, get me my pending updates. or actually, hold on, that's the wrong one. This one is a built-in one. Pending updates, check, boom, save, run. I'm good to go. I got my info and we're done. So this allows me to get that info out very easily. So yeah, so this is something that you can do. If you want to look what it looks like, you can see here, get pending updates. I ran it earlier this morning. It says no updates pending. No, duh, makes sense. So this is allowing me the ability to get that info, outputting it, and viewing it easily. All right. So one more example, again, as you get more into macOS, as you're gonna do more, you can do that. Now in N-Central, natively, you have these scripts to run OS updates. In RMM, you have more flexibility to actually do updates and things like that through automation. But this is coming to N-Central as well soon to do more. Another one that we got asked quite a bit, so we ended up building it, is getting the TCC permissions of a machine. So if I go into the cookbook to show you the example and what it looks like, which one is it? That's the restarting NIC one, installing. There it is, the TCC permissions report. So what you do is you come here, you run this, it will download the script once again, and this is what the output looks like. It will show you all the apps, like Safari.app is allowed to do location by system. This is a system set, not a user set. Then the terminal app is allowed file, contacts, microphone, Apple events. This is set by the user, which is different. And when was it set? Then this app is allowed, and so on and so on and so on. You have all your apps like that. So if you want to audit what is allowed or denied, when you deny something, it also gets logged in the TCC report. So you can actually run those commands to get that information. This is a script that is here. It will go through and pull everything. This is a lot of stuff. And then this checks all the permissions and then reports them back like this. So once again, same idea, right? In N-Central or in RMM, you would upload the script, then you would come in, select your device, run, and then when you go to job status, I would have my TCC permissions. I can click on it. If I have multiple devices, I'll see them quickly. I can click on the little file, download it, take a look at the output. In this case, there's nothing, so it's fine, but it shows me what there is. It's just a dummy device, so there's not much there. But the system will let you take a look at what's happening on that machine. So it's important to take that into account. And in line with that, as you go ahead and get that information out, wrong one. There you go. As you get that information, the next step that you may want to do is to reset set of permissions. So what we do have is, where'd they go? There it is. Resetting the TCC permission. So what this will do is, if you set nothing, it will remove all permission, which is a bit of a shotgun approach, but it's a way to clean up your security permissions. And then it will ask the user to revalidate all these different permissions as apps needed again. Anything that is set by an MDM or a system set will not be reset. So this is telling you here that it will not affect MDM overridden profiles. So anything set by ABM or anything set by an MDM will not be reset. You can also just specifically say which app of those do you want to do that. So if you put the first argument being either all, accessibility, camera, whatever. So if you see what I want to reset the camera permission on all my devices, just to make sure no apps have access to camera unless I choose. Run that against all your devices, just say camera, and it will remove camera from everybody. Or I say on all my devices, I want to reset the Chrome, for example. I put the actual app identifier as a parameter, and I say remove all Chrome permissions from all the devices at once. Run this on 100 machines, 1,000 machines, and boom, you're good to go. It's done. It gets the data, and it does it for you. So this is another example of where you can come in and get that data, run what you want, and then clean up as needed. This is a very aggressive thing, so please be careful, use that sparingly. But I did want to include it because I wanted to show that you can get the permissions report, but also if you want to go one step further, you could also clean up some permission with obviously some tact and being nice, but you could definitely do that. And if you're going to go do that, it's pretty easy. What you would do is you would choose your Mac, add a task, run a Mac script, and what you would do, I don't know if I put it here yet. Yeah, reset TCC. Then I could put space, all space, com.google.chrome, com.chrome.google, or whatever that was, the app name. Or I could just say all, or I could say camera, like I said. To only do camera, you just add them as parameters here, and then this will execute it the way you chose, and will clean up exactly how you decided to do it. All right, so the next part is installing applications. I got a lot of requests for it after the first one. How do I install apps on Mac? How do I match what you did in with Chocolatey? How do I do the same thing? How do I go next? So fine, fair enough. So we're going to take a look at how to install apps. There's principally two ways to install apps, whether it's Windows or Linux, right? You have your own file, you want to push the file, or you have a tool like Chocolatey on Windows or Installomator for Mac that will do the same thing as Chocolatey. There's a very extensive list of apps that you can push, like 365 and things like that. So what you would do, if you do it a standalone way, you're going to go and grab the policy to deploy installing from a URL. Then you download this, and what you would do is you would provide the URL to the PKG file as a parameter. Once you do that, this will basically tell the script, go download that file and run the PKG installer with the proper things, and boom, you're good to go. And that just takes care of that for you. So this is kind of neat. This is something that you can leverage to do. Once you've done that, you've done the install, right? As long as you have it in the proper format, it will install any app you want as long as you put it somewhere where you want. Once you've done all of that, the next thing realistically would be to be using, oops, wrong one, to be using Installomator, which is allowing you to deploy a series of apps. So Installomator, I can't say that name. I don't know why. I've been struggling all day. Installomator, I don't know, whatever. It's weird for me. So if you look at the list, it's got a very, very, very long list for things from, like, you know, Firefox, Chrome, different apps, Microsoft 365, Office, Business Pro, Word, Jammer, whatever. There's a ton of apps. So what you do is you would first install Installomator. So just like in Windows, you would need to install the tool first. So you run this one, which will install the Installomator for you. So you would go to your Mac, select, add task, script, install Installomator on all your devices. Boom, they're installed, they're good to go. Next step would then be to come back and then, let me find it, there you go. Then you run the install packages with Installomator. And then what this will give you the ability to do is you can then say run, put the package's name, so something like this, where you put at the end of the script, you would put in the app name, you could put a comma and put multiple, like this here, Google Chrome, comma Firefox, comma whatever. And then the output will be something like this, where it shows that it's running, it's downloading, it's installing, blah, 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 and so on and so on. So pretty easy. So this just gives you the ability to install whatever apps you're looking for and deploy pretty easily. So just something to keep in mind. This works within Central and RMM on that front, so you can use it in either platform very easily. Just next, run, boom, you're done. Makes it super easy. Someone's asking if it will run silently. Yes, it will. It should not be bothering the user. I've done it before and it was completely silent. It should completely run silently unless there's an absolute mandatory pop-up or a permissions pop-up once it's installed. But normally they install completely silently. We'll just show them as new apps simply, just like if they were installed by the MDM essentially, because that's mostly what they do as well. So yeah. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything on that one yet, because we're a little bit ahead of time. I think that's it for that. Okay, so as we're finishing this, just keep in mind there's some resources available to you before we get through the end. The first one is the automation cookbook. Now you have some PowerShell stuff. You can use PowerShell in Mac, but whatever. The one that I really want to stress is enable.com/cookbook. This is where you're gonna find all the resources you're looking for and all the help you'll ever need. So please leverage this. This is where everything is. I will be sending a list of all the items I've shown today, probably by end of day today, to everybody. So, oops, by email, I'm getting ahead of myself. So you will see that email come out with all of these policies and links, just like I did the first time around. Anybody who attends, I will be sending that list. I get the report from GoToWebinar, then I'll send that out for everybody. So you're welcome to get that. If you have questions, just reply back to me, let me know. But this is really just there to help you out. So I'm going to thank you guys all for joining today. Thank you very much. If you do have further questions, please let me know, and stay tuned for an email from me later today or tomorrow at the latest, but probably today, with the list of automation along with everything else that you will need, and we'll take it from there. So thank you very, very much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.